The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid shut with a heavy thud that echoed through the vast hall. Representatives from hundreds of different worlds sat in their assigned seats, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes across the curved amphitheater. Some had tentacles instead of arms, others had multiple eyes that blinked in sequence, and a few even floated in special atmosphere bubbles. But today, every single one of them sat perfectly still, staring at the massive viewing screen that dominated the front wall. Admiral Jiho stood on the bridge of the Taeguk, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the swirling colors of hyperspace through the main window. His ship had just completed another routine jump, appearing above the peaceful world of Kepler Prime, like a metal mountain materializing from thin air. The planet below was a neutral meeting ground, chosen specifically because no single species claimed it as their own. It was the perfect place for diplomatic missions like this one. "Admiral, we're receiving the standard greeting protocols from Kepler Prime Traffic Control," reported Lieutenant Sujin from her station. Her fingers danced. Across the holographic controls as streams of data flowed across her screen. Jiho nodded. "Acknowledge their greeting and transmit our escort credentials. The Council transport should be arriving soon." This was supposed to be simple work. The Galactic Council had requested a human escort for one of their important transport ships, carrying delegates to a trade summit. Humans had been part of the galactic community for only 50 years, and they were still considered the newcomers. Most species saw them as helpful, but not particularly impressive. Their technology seemed adequate, but nothing special. Their ships looked sturdy but basic. Their weapons appeared functional but unremarkable. Captain Minji walked onto the bridge, carrying a steaming cup of coffee that filled the air with its rich aroma. She had been reviewing the mission briefings in her ready room, making sure every detail was perfect. As the ship's captain, she took her responsibilities seriously, especially when representing humanity to the galaxy. "Any word from our passengers yet?" she asked, settling into her command chair. "The Council transport Harmony just dropped out of hyperspace, about 10,000 kilometers off our starboard side," replied Ensign Cumin from the communications station. "They're requesting permission to form up with us for the journey to the summit location." Minji smiled. "Grant permission and welcome them to the convoy. Let's make sure they feel safe and protected." What nobody knew was that the Taeguk was not just any human ship. While it looked like a standard diplomatic vessel from the outside, it carried some of humanity's most advanced experimental technology. The scientists and engineers back on Earth had been working in secret for decades, developing weapons and defensive systems that pushed the boundaries of known physics. They weren't trying to threaten anyone. They simply believed that space was dangerous and that human ships needed to be able to protect themselves and their allies. The two ships moved through space together, looking like peaceful travelers on a routine journey. The Council transport was elegant and smooth, designed more for comfort than combat. The human ship appeared blocky and practical, like a floating toolbox. Neither vessel showed any signs of the drama that was about to unfold. Suddenly, Sujin's console erupted in flashing red lights and urgent beeping sounds. "Multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace," she announced, her voice tight with concern. "Configuration and energy signatures match known pirate vessels." Minji was on her feet. Instantly. "How many?" 12 ships, various classes. "They're moving to intercept the Council transport." Admiral Jiho stepped forward, his expression calm but serious. "Battle stations. Protect the transport at all costs." The bridge transformed from a peaceful workplace into a center of controlled chaos. Officers moved quickly to their positions. Screens flickered to life with tactical displays, and the subtle hum of the ship's systems grew deeper as power was redirected to weapons and shields. "Pirates are broadcasting surrender demands," reported Cumin. "They want the Council delegates to prepare for boarding." "Not happening," Minji said firmly. She opened a channel to the pirate fleet. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Minji of Phi, the human ship Taeguk. You are threatening peaceful diplomatic personnel under our protection. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response came back filled with electronic laughter and crude insults. The pirates clearly thought one human ship posed no threat to their entire fleet. They were about to learn how wrong they say. "Where is her target, the lead pirate vessel?" Admiral Jiho ordered quietly. "Quantum cascade cannons, minimum power setting." Minji's eyes widened slightly. She had heard about these weapons but had never seen them in action. "Minimum power, sir." "Trust me, Captain. Even at minimum power, this will end the fight." The Taguk's weapon systems came online with a sound like distant thunder. Energy began building in chambers that existed partially outside normal space-time, drawing power from dimensions that most species didn't even know existed. What the pirates saw was just another human ship preparing to fire conventional weapons. What they couldn't see was the fundamental forces of reality being carefully manipulated and directed. The first shot looked like a simple beam of white light. It struck the lead pirate ship, and for a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the enemy vessel began to shimmer like a mirage on a hot day. Within seconds, it wasn't just destroyed, it was gone, reduced to its component atoms and scattered harmlessly into space. The remaining 11 pirate ships suddenly found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. This wasn't just superior firepower. This was technology that operated on principles they couldn't understand, wielded by humans who had been seriously underestimated. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted exactly 3 minutes and 47 seconds. The underground intelligence facility on Altara Prime buzzed with nervous energy 3 days after the incident at Kepler Prime. Senior analyst Hanuel sat in her dimly lit office, surrounded by holographic displays showing ship schematics, energy readings, and combat footage from a dozen different angles. Her 4 eyes moved independently as she processed multiple data streams simultaneously, a trait that made her species excellent intelligence analysts. "The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases," muttered junior analyst Wu Jin, as he materialized another hologram in the center of the room. The ghostly image of the Taguk rotated slowly, its hull marked with thousands of sensor readings. Whatever those humans used, it's completely unknown technology. Hanuel's primary eyes focused on the data, while her secondary eyes continued scanning other reports. "Show me the molecular breakdown of the debris field again." The hologram shifted to display a swirling cloud of scattered atoms where the pirate ships used to be. Wu Jin highlighted specific elements in different colors. "This is what bothers me most. The pirates weren't just destroyed, they were perfectly disassembled at the atomic level. No explosion, no heat signature, no electromagnetic pulse, just gone. Like someone took apart a puzzle and scattered the pieces," Hanuel whispered. Agent Yuna burst through the office door without knocking, her breathing heavy from running. Her species was known for their incredible speed and stealth abilities, making them perfect for covert operations. In her hands, she clutched a datapad that glowed with urgent priority codes. "We have a problem," Yuna announced, setting the datapad on Hanuel's desk. "A big problem." Hanuel gestured for her to continue, while Wu Jin secured the room against electronic surveillance. "I managed to intercept some human military communications," Yuna began, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But what I found doesn't make sense." The humans were discussing the incident, and they kept referring to the Taguk as an antique and a museum piece. Wu Jin's tentacles curled in confusion. A museum piece? That ship just erased 12 pirate vessels from existence. "That's not the worst part," Yuna continued, pulling up a translation matrix on the datapad. "Listen to this conversation between 2 human naval officers." She activated the audio file. The room filled with human voices speaking in their native language, with alien subtitles appearing on the nearby screens. The conversation was casual, almost boring, as the humans discussed routine maintenance schedules and crew rotations. But then one officer mentioned something that made all 3 intelligence agents freeze. "Good thing Admiral Jiho was commanding something reliable like the Taguk," said the first voice. "Can you imagine if they had given him one of the new dimensional-class destroyers? The pirates would have been erased from multiple timelines simultaneously." The second voice laughed. "Or worse, if they had brought a reality anchor. Half the sector would have experienced temporal displacement just from charging the main weapons." Hanuel's 4 eyes widened in horror. "They're talking about these weapons like they're everyday tools." Yuna nodded grimly. "It gets worse. I found technical manuals in their data streams. They have something called reality manipulation drives that can alter the fundamental laws of physics in localized areas. Their newer ships don't just travel faster than light, they can travel through dimensions we don't even have names for. Wu Jin began pacing around the room, his tentacles writhing with nervous energy. How is this possible? We've been monitoring human development for 50 years. They were using chemical rockets when we first made contact. That's what I thought too, Hanul said quietly, until I started looking at their historical records more carefully. She brought up a timeline on the main display. Look at this progression. 50 years ago, they were barely reaching their own moon. 25 years ago, they developed faster-than-light travel. But notice this gap here. She pointed to a section of the timeline marked with classified designations. There's almost no public information about their military development during the last 15 years, Yuna observed. Because they've been working in secret, Hanul concluded. They've been deliberately showing us outdated technology while developing things that shouldn't be possible. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If the Taeguk was truly obsolete by human standards, what did their modern warships look like? What other weapons did they possess? And most importantly, why had they been hiding their true capabilities? Wu Jin brought up another file. I found something else disturbing. There are references to something called temporal weapons that can attack targets in the past, and dimensional artillery that can strike enemies across parallel universes. That's impossible, Hanul breathed. The energy requirements alone would drain an entire star. Unless they've figured out how to harvest energy from sources we don't understand, Yuna suggested. What if they're not just advanced? What if they're so far beyond us that we can't even comprehend the gap? Hanul stood up and walked to the window overlooking the intelligence complex. Hundreds of analysts from dozens of species worked day and night to monitor threats to galactic security. But now she realized they had all been looking in the wrong direction. We need to contact the High Command immediately, she decided. Every government in the galaxy needs to know what we've discovered. What exactly are we going to tell them? Wu Jin asked. That the friendly humans who help with our trade disputes and rescue our lost ships are actually the most terrifying military power in galactic history. That's exactly what we're going to tell them, Hanul replied, her voice heavy with the weight of responsibility. Because if we're right about this, then humanity has been carefully managing first contact to avoid causing a panic. They've been showing us just enough of their technology to seem helpful without revealing how completely outclassed we really are. Yuna pulled up the final piece of evidence, a human scientific paper discussing theoretical applications of quantum mechanics that read like magic to most galactic scientists. The scariest part is that they're not even trying to hide their advanced research anymore. They're publishing scientific papers about manipulating reality itself, and we've been too primitive to understand what we were reading. The three intelligence officers looked at each other with growing dread. They had stumbled upon the most important discovery in galactic history, and it terrified them completely. The first crack in galactic stability appeared on the Zentarian Stock Exchange at exactly 1427 Galactic Standard Time. A single news alert flashed across trading screens throughout the galaxy. Human military capabilities exceed previous estimates by unknown magnitude. Within seconds, the value of military defense contractors began dropping like stones thrown into a deep well. Kijun, a veteran trader on the exchange floor, watched his personal fortune evaporate in real time. His tentacles moved frantically across multiple trading terminals as he tried to sell off his investments in plasma cannon manufacturers and shield generator companies. Around him, hundreds of other traders were doing the same thing, creating a cascading avalanche of panic selling. This can't be real, he muttered to his trading partner Sunwoo, whose scaled skin had turned a pale green, a sure sign of stress in his species. The humans have been buying our weapons for decades. Why would they need our technology if they already had better? Sunwoo's large eyes darted between multiple screens, showing plummeting stock prices. Maybe they were just being polite. You know how humans are. They always seem so considerate about other people's feelings. The implications hit them both at the same time. If humans had been politely purchasing inferior alien weapons to avoid hurting anyone's feelings, what did that say about their actual military strength? Across the galaxy, emergency meetings were being called in government buildings, military headquarters, and corporate boardrooms. The intelligence reports from Altara Prime had been classified at the highest levels, but secrets had a way of leaking out when they were this important. On the forest world of Verdania, Prime Minister Tai Yong called an emergency session of the HFY Planetary Council. The ancient tree that served as their meeting hall buzzed with worried conversations as representatives from various forest communities gathered on its massive branches. "Citizens," Tai Yong announced, his voice carrying through the natural acoustics of the hollow trunk, "we have received disturbing intelligence about our human neighbors. It appears their military technology is far more advanced than we previously understood." Elder Jisu, whose family had lived in the same tree for 12 generations, swayed gently in the breeze as she spoke. "How advanced are we talking about? Better shields? Stronger weapons?" "According to the reports," Tai Yong replied carefully, "they possess weapons that can manipulate reality itself. They can attack targets across different dimensions and even strike enemies in the past." The shocked silence that followed was broken only by the rustling of leaves in the wind. Finally, someone from the back branches called out, "Should we be worried?" "3 entire species have already begun evacuating their homeworlds as a precautionary measure," Tai Yong admitted. Meanwhile, on the industrial world of Korath Prime, Supreme War leader Chang Min was experiencing the most humbling moment of his military career. The Korath Empire had built its reputation as the galaxy's premier warrior society. Their battle fleets were feared throughout known space. Their soldiers were legendary for their courage and skill. Their weapons were considered state-of-the-art, and apparently all of it was completely useless against human technology. Chang Min stood before the War Council, his proud battle scars suddenly feeling like reminders of primitive conflicts. "Honored warriors," he began, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind, "we must face an uncomfortable truth. The humans are not the peaceful newcomers we believed them to be." General Nyon, veteran of 30 successful campaigns, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Sir, are you suggesting we should fear the humans?" "I'm suggesting we should respect them," Chang Min replied. "There's a difference between fear and wisdom. A smart warrior knows when they're outmatched." "What are you proposing?" asked General Jinwu, his hand instinctively moving to his ceremonial sword. "We send a formal request to Earth," Chang Min decided. "A non-aggression pact. We acknowledge their superior strength and request peaceful coexistence." The room erupted in shocked protests. Korath warriors didn't ask for peace. They imposed it through strength, but Chang Min held up his hand for silence. "Would you rather die with honor or live with wisdom?" he asked quietly. "Because if these intelligence reports are accurate, those might be our only 2 choices." On the trading world of Vega Station, Trade Minister Dong Hyun was dealing with a different kind of crisis. His office overlooked the massive commercial docks where ships from hundreds of worlds came to buy and sell goods. Today, those docks were eerily quiet, as nervous traders avoided anything connected to human space. "Minister," his aide Hyunwoo announced breathlessly, "the Merchant Guild is demanding immediate action. They want to know if it's safe to continue trading with human colonies." Donghyun rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of an impossible decision. The humans were some of the galaxy's best trading partners, honest, reliable, and they always paid their bills on time. But if they really possessed reality-altering weapons, what did that mean for galactic commerce? "Issue an immediate embargo," he decided reluctantly. "All trade with human territories is suspended until we can assess the security implications." "Sir, that will cost us billions of credits in lost revenue," Hyunwoo protested. "And continuing trade might cost us our civilization," Donghyun replied grimly. Ambassador Seoyeon sat in her office at the Galactic Diplomatic Center, watching her life's work crumble around her. For 20 years, she had worked to build peaceful relationships between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. She had negotiated trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. She had believed that understanding and cooperation could overcome any challenge. Now her communication terminal was flooded with messages from panicked governments demanding explanations she didn't have. Emergency sessions were being called on dozens of worlds. Military budgets were being tripled overnight. Some species were even discussing the possibility of forming a defensive alliance against humanity. The irony was devastating. Humans had spent decades trying to prove they were peaceful, trustworthy neighbors. Instead, their very strength had made them seem like an existential threat. Her personal communicator chimed with an urgent message from Earth's Defense Ministry. "Ambassador, please advise all friendly governments that humanity poses no threat. To galactic peace, we are prepared to discuss any concerns through normal diplomatic channels." Seoshon laughed bitterly. Normal diplomatic channels had just broken down completely, and it would take a miracle to put them back together. The Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never hosted an emergency session quite like this. 1. Representatives from 847 different worlds packed into the massive chamber, their various forms creating a sea of colors, shapes and sizes that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Today, the atmosphere was thick with tension and fear. Chancellor Hyunjin called the session to order with 3 resonant chimes that echoed through the vast space. His voice, amplified by translation systems, reached every corner of the hall in hundreds of different languages simultaneously. "We gather today to address a matter of unprecedented galactic security," he announced. "The recent revelation regarding human military capabilities has created a crisis that demands immediate action." In the human delegation section, Ambassador Jiwoo sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap. She had requested permission to address the council first, but her request had been denied. Instead, she would have to listen as representatives from across the galaxy debated humanity's fate without their input. Representative Minho from the Altarian Republic was the first to speak. His 4 eyes swept across the assembly as he activated his translation unit. "Honored colleagues, I urge caution in our deliberations today. Yes, the humans possess advanced military technology, but in 50 years of contact, have they ever used this power aggressively? Have they ever threatened us? Have they ever broken a treaty or violated galactic law?" Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species nodded in agreement, remembering positive interactions with human diplomats and traders. Others remained skeptical, their fear overriding their logical thinking. "The humans have been model galactic citizens," Minho continued. "They've helped with disaster relief, participated in peacekeeping missions, and contributed to scientific research. Their actions speak louder than our fears." But Speaker Ariam from the Zephyrian Collective rose to challenge him. Her crystalline form caught the chamber's lights, casting rainbow patterns across the nearby seats. "Representative Minho speaks of the past, but we must consider the future. No single species should possess the power to destroy our entire civilization. This isn't about what the humans have done. It's about what they could do." The debate that followed was unlike anything the Council had ever witnessed. For 12 hours straight, representatives argued passionately about humanity's place in the galaxy. Some defended the humans, pointing to their peaceful history and positive contributions. Others argued that such overwhelming power was inherently dangerous regardless of current intentions. Senator Do-young from the Aquatic Federation floated in his specialized water chamber as he spoke. "My people have a saying, even the gentlest current can become a devastating flood. We cannot ignore the potential for catastrophe simply because it hasn't happened yet. But we also cannot punish people for crimes they haven't committed," countered Representative Yoongi from the Silicon Confederacy. His mechanical voice carried a note of frustration that translated clearly across species barriers. "If we act based on fear rather than facts, we become the very thing we claim to oppose." Ambassador Jiwoo watched the debate with growing sadness. She understood their fear, she really did. If she had learned that one of her neighbors possessed reality-altering weapons, she might have been scared too. But humanity had never hidden their peaceful intentions. They had spent decades proving their trustworthiness through actions, not words. As the hours dragged on, it became clear that fear was winning over logic. More and more representatives spoke in favor of restrictions on human activities. The specific, Proposals varied, but the general sentiment was the same. Humanity's power needed to be contained. Finally, Chancellor Hyun-jin called for the formal presentation of Resolution 2387X. The massive holographic display at the center of the chamber showed the proposed legislation in glowing text. The resolution before us, announced Legislative Secretary Yoon-ji, calls for the complete prohibition of human military vessels in galactic space, the establishment of a 50-light-year exclusion zone around all human territories, and the suspension of all military-related technology transfers between humanity and other galactic civilizations. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just a restriction, it was a quarantine. Humanity would be isolated from the rest of the galaxy, treated like a dangerous disease that needed to be contained. Representative Minho made one final plea. This resolution turns our back on 50 years of friendship and cooperation. We're about to punish our allies for being too good at protecting themselves and others. But Speaker Ariam's response carried the weight of galactic fear. Sometimes friendship isn't enough. Sometimes survival requires difficult choices. We cannot gamble the future of 847 civilizations on the continued goodwill of one species, no matter how friendly they've been. The voting process took 3 hours as each world cast their decision. The massive display showed the tally in real time. Green, lights for approval. Red lights for rejection, yellow lights for abstention. Ambassador Jiwoo watched the lights change, her heart sinking with each green glow that appeared. The final count was devastating. 434 votes in favor, 389 against, 24 abstentions. Resolution 2387X had passed by the narrowest margin in Council. History. Chancellor Hyun-jin's voice was somber as he announced the results. The resolution is hereby adopted and will take effect immediately. All human military vessels currently in galactic space have 72 hours to return to the exclusion zone. Ambassador Jiwoo was finally permitted to speak. She stood slowly, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Honored representatives, I want you to know that humanity bears no ill will toward any of you. We understand your fear, even though it saddens us. We will comply with this resolution completely. She paused, looking around the chamber at the faces and face analogues of species that humanity had considered friends. But I want you to remember this day. Remember that you chose fear over friendship. Remember that when we offered our hand in partnership, you slapped it away. And remember that despite this betrayal, we still wish you peace and prosperity. As she walked out of the chamber, many representatives avoided her gaze. They knew they had just made a terrible mistake, but they were too frightened to change course. The galaxy had just quarantined its most powerful protectors, and deep down everyone knew they would regret it. The communication terminal in Admiral Jiho's quarters chimed softly at 0600 ship time, interrupting his morning coffee routine. He had been expecting this message ever since Ambassador Jiwoo's final transmission from the Galactic Council. Still, seeing the official recall orders flash across his screen made the reality of the situation hit home. All human military vessels are hereby ordered to return to Earth space immediately, the message read. Compliance with Galactic Council Resolution 2387X is mandatory. Return to base for further instructions. Jiho set down his coffee cup and walked to the observation deck of the Taeguk. Below them, Kepler Prime rotated slowly, its blue and green surface looking peaceful in the morning light. Just a few days. Ergo, this had been a routine diplomatic mission. Now it was humanity's last official presence in galactic space. Captain Minji found him there 20 minutes later, her own copy of the recall orders tucked under her arm. The crew is asking questions, Admiral. They want to know why we're being sent away. Because the galaxy is afraid of us, Jiho replied simply. And perhaps they have good reason to be. Minji joined him at the observation window. We've never threatened anyone. We've spent 50 years proving we're peaceful. Sometimes being too powerful is threat enough, Jiho said quietly, even if you never intend to use that power. Down on Kepler Prime, the Galactic Council's emergency session was still ongoing. Representatives who had voted for the resolution were already beginning to have second thoughts, but it was too late to change course now. The decision had been made, and galactic law required immediate implementation. Chancellor Hyunjin stood before the assembly, looking tired after the marathon. Voting session. The human vessel Taeguk has requested permission to address the Council before departing our space. Given their exemplary service record, I believe we owe them that courtesy. The request was approved by voice vote, though many representatives seemed uncomfortable with the idea. Within an hour, Captain Minji stood at the council podium, her uniform crisp and her demeanor professional despite the circumstances. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "I stand before you not to argue with your decision, but to help you understand what you've just done." The chamber was unnaturally quiet. Even the usual background chatter of simultaneous translation had ceased as every being present focused on her words. 50 years ago, when humanity first reached the stars, we didn't know what we would find out here. How science fiction stories were full of hostile aliens and galactic wars. So we built our ships to survive in what we thought might be a dangerous universe. She gestured toward the holographic display, which showed a technical schematic of the Taeguk. "This ship, the vessel that apparently terrified you so much, is over a century old by our design standards. We chose it for diplomatic missions precisely because it's one of our least threatening vessels. We thought it would make our alien friends more comfortable." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembly. Representative Minho buried his face in his hands, realizing the full magnitude of what they had just done. "You see," Minji continued, "we never wanted to intimidate anyone. We just wanted to be prepared. When we discovered that the galaxy was actually full of peaceful, civilized species, we were relieved. We thought we could be friends." Speaker Ariam's crystalline form flickered with nervous energy. "Captain, are you saying your military has even more advanced weapons than what we witnessed?" Minji's smile was sad, but understanding. "I'm saying that if we had wanted to conquer the galaxy, we would have done it decades ago. The fact that we're all sitting here having this conversation should tell you something about our intentions." She walked closer to the assembly, her hands clasped behind her back in a gesture that somehow managed to be both respectful and confident. "You've chosen to quarantine us because you're afraid of our power. We accept that decision. But I want you to understand what you're giving up." The holographic display changed to show humanitarian missions, rescue operations, and scientific collaborations that humans had participated in over the years. We've helped evacuate 3 dying worlds, assisted with famine relief on 17 planets, and shared our medical technology freely with anyone who needed it. We have been your partners, your friends, and your protectors when necessary. Chancellor Hyunjin found his voice. "Captain, surely you understand our position. Your weapons technology is beyond our comprehension." "Of course I understand," Minji replied. "Fear is a powerful motivator, but so is trust, and you've chosen fear over 50 years of trustworthy behavior." She turned to address the entire assembly, her voice carrying a note of finality. "The Taeguk will depart galactic space within the hour, as required by your resolution. We'll return to Earth and inform our government of your decision. We won't argue, we won't resist, and we won't retaliate." The chamber held its collective breath as she delivered her final words. "But I want you to remember something. We've spent 5 decades trying to prove we're worthy of your friendship. Today, you've told us that our friendship isn't wanted. We hope this arrangement proves satisfactory for everyone involved." She paused at the podium, looking out at the sea of alien faces one last time. "We'll be waiting in human space when you're ready to talk to us as equals, rather than as threats to be contained. Until then, we wish you peace and prosperity." As Captain Minji walked out of the chamber, the silence was deafening. Many representatives knew they had just made a catastrophic mistake, but pride and fear prevented them from admitting it. 2 hours later, the Taeguk disappeared into hyperspace, taking with it humanity's last official presence in galactic civilization. What the galaxy didn't know was that back on Earth, human scientists were already working on technologies that made the Taeguk look like a stone axe. In their isolation, humanity would continue to advance, leaving the rest of the galaxy further behind with each passing year. The quarantine they had demanded would become their own prison, and humanity would be the jailers they could never escape. Retry Claude. Can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.